Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rusty Rockhound, and in today's video, I'm going to show you a bunch of rocks that I found from Monroe County, Indiana, and we're going to talk a little bit about geodized fossils. Alright, so everything here is actually from 3 separate trips. Over here, we have the most recent trip. Over here, we have the second most recent trip. And then everything over here is from the first trip in that area. So this is from the first trip, and this is one of my favorite finds from that trip. There's a crack growing down the center, but the crystals in this are pretty big. Here's a quarter for scale. As you can see, those crystals in there are pretty large. I like this one because the crystals are very sparkly, and there's a big surface area with a lot of crystals inside. This is kind of a mystery. I believe it is some type of fossil or geodized fossil, but I'm not exactly sure. If I had to guess, I'd guess horn coral. Right here is the geode from the thumbnail. This is a geodized gastropod, so it's that snail that had the pointy shell. And this is 100% a geode, and it has none of the original shell left. Unlike this, which is a geodized brachiopod of some type, either that or a bivalve, but those are both very similar animals with the shells like a modern day clam. So as you can see in here is a very, very nicely sized shell inside this geode. There's even a little bit of a crinoid segment in there as well. So you can see one half of the shell going up, and then another half of the shell kind of ducks down into the geode. Then right here are 2 pretty cool death plates with a bunch of crinoid stems and a little bit of a bryozoan down there. Right here we have a little geode. I'm not sure if this is a fossil, but it just looks like a regular geode to me. However, right here we have another geode, but if you notice, it's almost a perfect cylinder, and this is a geodized crinoid segment. And it goes all the way through. You can see my hand through the hole in the center with crystals inside. This crinoid segment is sort of like a semi-geodized segment because there are crystals and little vugs inside, but it didn't quite explode into a full geode. Right here we have a cool crinoid segment. I believe this would probably be the part of the crinoid that attached to the seafloor, but I'm not quite sure. But this one's pretty cool because it has a full star hole in the center, which is really cool. And here we have all kind of just basic crinoid segments. This one is pretty cool because it has a bunch of little branches on it. This one right here is a little bit unique because of the pattern. And I'd say that this one is the most unique. I don't usually see these ones. They're the ones that are kind of shaped like a oval. And those are all just different species of the same animal. Now from the most recent trip, this is just a really red and orange geode I picked up. I just picked it up because it's a pretty unusual color, but it is very cool how red that is. This right here is probably my favorite find out of everything in the video today. It's this very, very nice botryoidally and agate geode. You can see some sort of bands in the side, but they're very faint and they don't really have many different colors, which is a little sad, but I still really like the way it feels. And it's a really cool color too. It's like a blue and orange. It's really weird, but really cool. And this trip was really, really good for all the brachiopods. This one's really nice. It's a nice big full brachiopod. This one's a little bit broken, but it is also translucent, which is very interesting. and then a bunch of little small ones. I really like this one. It's just like a cute little shell. And then this one's really cool because it's almost iridescent. Like it has a little bit of the mother of pearl retained, which is very cool. There's lots of detail in that one. And then a little baby. And there's a quarter for scale. And then finally here we have another geodized brachiopod or bivalve. This one's really cool because you can see the full separation between the two halves of the brachiopod. You have one shell that goes up this way, then you have the second shell that goes down under. It's really cool how you can see both sides really well. And then when there's no shell, it's just a regular looking geode. It's very cool. So now I want to talk a little bit about geodized fossils, or silicified fossils, they may be known as. So a lot of the times what you'll see in Indiana are these geodes that have very odd shapes, or even sometimes these geodes that have full shells inside of them. And sometimes you'll have geodes with full crinoid stems inside of them. So it is very, very hard to try to find specific information about this specific phenomenon because I have only ever heard of this happening in southern Indiana rocks. When fossils form, they form when the animal is completely buried in the sediment before it starts decomposing. So what happens with these is that the animal is buried in sediment and it begins to be replaced with quartz and silica, which creates a geode. Sometimes you have animals like these bivalves or brachiopods where their shell remains, but the organic matter does not. I've also heard that for gastropods like this one, the original shell remaining is very rare or completely impossible because I've never seen an image, and I also heard of someone who's found hundreds and hundreds of these but has never found a geode with the original shell inside. But in the end, you always get a geode with the original shape of the fossil. Another thing that happens a lot of the time in this process is the fossil explodes. And basically what happens there is the actual fossil becomes huge, like it starts growing and growing and it explodes out. So I'll insert a picture here of a crinoid stem where the geode itself is probably about this big. And so what I believe happens there, but I'm not quite sure, and let me know in the comments if I'm completely wrong. What I believe happens there is that the pressure from inside the geode as it is forming is so big that it basically bulges out the geode. I can't really find any information on what causes the actual fossil to explode outward, and that's my best hypothesis, but I'm not exactly sure, so let me know if you do know. So that's some information on geodized fossils. So now let's get into some pictures of all of these things that I found.